I played one at David Lipscomb first,
Mm-hmm.
and then went on to the University of Tennessee. That was a 2-year college then. Then went on to university and played basketball at Tennessee my junior year. And then the war came along, and I was afraid that I didn't stay the whole my senior year out for basketball because I was in the Navy. I had to get through a certain number of courses and all, and so I gave up basketball because I didn't want to, get involved.
Well, you enlisted in the Navy so you would be
I could finish
proper
school,
place.
so I could see. I went into a B7
And not be
program.
drafted.
And not be drafted, right? I volunteered for the Navy. Of course, my dad, Big Tom volunteered me.
Yeah.
He called me up and said, "I want you to
Hey,
meet
you've
me
been
in Nashville, catch the bus."
Oh, I
and I
didn't
went
know
over
that.
there.
Well, Big Tom
And
was
he
in the
went with
Navy.
me. He
Oh,
was
he
in
was
light
in
of
the
the
Navy,
air.
so
And so he said, "This is where you should be, is in the Navy." And he
Well,
said,
right at that year, all the boys were being drafted.
and he
and
found out
he
about
wanted
this B7
This time to
program.
be in the Navy.
yeah.
And he found out that was about that program that if you signed up, why they would let you finish your last 2 years.
Uh-huh.
And then they offered the same thing to the guys in the Army over at UT. And instead of letting them finish, they told them they would get to finish
And they did.
within 30 days after they signed up.
They were
They
gone.
cleaned university out, took every one of them in the Army, just put them right on in. Uncle Bunny was in that group. And
Oh, was
he thought he was going to get to stay.
You got cleaned out.
He got cleaned out.
So what year was that? That
That
you
was-
graduated and then went to the Navy?
I
That was
finished in
41.
40, I finished in 40, actually it was 43 when I finished, 42, 43, I forget which now.
42, I think,
42.
early 42.
Because I went
right
in,
on
I
into
went in
Chicago.
January of 41. I went into the B7, I think.
Oh, okay. And then you went into,
He was
Then I
allowed
went
to
I went
finish his
went-
courses at Tennessee for
right.
another full
Then they
year.
sent me on to
Then he went to Chicago.
Chicago to school there,
Midshipman.
midshipman school, and then I got my commission, Ensign's commission, and then was sent to Little Creek and picked up an LCI, Little Creek, Virginia, and picked up
now what's an LCI? Landing?
Landing Craft Infantry.
Okay.
It'll sleep about 125 Army personnel, and you can carry about 225 if you don't have to sleep them. And so that was what I was assigned to then. As a commissary and communications officer. And the funniest thing was,
Bought their groceries.
You bought the
they
groceries?
told me that I had to get all the food up for this little ship of 4 officers and 25 men, and I ought to get 6 months' supply. But man, I never had even caught anything but liver for the old bird dog back in Columbia when Dad used to send me after that. And I stayed up to about 4 a.m. trying to figure out what to have. And I ordered, food like it's going out of style.
Right.
And I got over there at the commissary place to pick it up. And when I did, I ran into an old chief that had just come back. He said, "Listen, you get everything you can get, and get canned fruits, all of those fancy stuff, and then just get a small amount of staples, but triple and double and quadruple amount of like peaches and applesauce, all these things, because you can't get it over there. And get powdered ice cream. Get a whole bunch of that and put it on there." So I ordered enough Irish potatoes. I guess I had 50 bags of those things, or maybe 100, and you'd think they'd go bad, but we lashed them down on the deck, and before
Kept
we
them the
got
whole war.
before we got across, the funniest thing, and everybody just laughed at me, Here I was, we were 6 LCIs together, and we were to get the food. So they came back in, had 1 truck, and here I come steaming in there, 6 trucks. And everybody
guys
just
in, they
laughed.
sure were
They
glad they were on
laughed,
your
they
boat.
laughed and laughed at me. And then the crew thought they'd never get those trucks unloaded and lashed down down into where the Army would be. We had to lash it all down. But before we got to England, those others were flashing me for food. They had run out. And I would not let them have any. I said, this is for my crew. I got it for my crew. If you weren't smart enough to get it, then you're going to wait till you get to England and you can get all you want. But I'm not giving it up because I don't know how much we're going to have to use, you know.
Yeah.
And I really didn't have much except the staples, you know, just to get us across. But it was the fancy stuff that I loaded up on. But at the time, I was sort of the laughing stock of the Ensign group going across. And before I was over, I was a hero.
Yeah.
You know.
I know your ship like
But then we landed at Falmouth, and then went on into Weymouth, where we were based, waiting for the invasion. And we went out of there on maneuvers all the time. We went out on that maneuver where nobody knew about it until just recently, I guess within the last year, that we lost almost as many men on this mock invasion as we did on the first day of the invasion. The German E-boats, which were sort of like our torpedo boats, ran into the group. Nobody was expecting them. They knew they would sort of do a hit and run, but they must have had a whole flotilla out there, and they were coming and just knocking ships out left and right, and they lost almost 800 men were killed in that mock invasion by those German U-boats sinking the ships and all. And we made a couple of those invasions. And then there was a certain group, day of the invasion, of course that was building up to that.
Now, when you went over there, then were you stationed in England for a while, like before this invasion?
Yeah, we
We're
were
talking about the
stationed-
invasion of Normandy.
No,
They were headquartered at Weymouth, weren't
Weymouth. We were at Weymouth, and that's where
they?
we
Which
were
is
based
on
out
the
of.
coast of
Yeah.
England on the channel.
And a lot of funny things, of course, happened. But we were there, and then we weren't there too long before the invasion because we didn't get over there until January, I guess it was, of '44. So we only were there about 6 months in England. And
So what did y'all do? Just
go out on maneuvers.
Go out on maneuvers
and do certain exercises.
And meet
Right.
English girls.
meet English girls, and so y'all, I mean, you stayed on the boat.
Yeah,
right?
we stayed on the boat.
Stayed on the boat.
Lived on the boat.
Yeah.
Lived on the boat, but you could go into town sometimes. Also.
Yeah, you had liberty and all, and
That's when you meet the English girls.
that's when I met all the English girls at the movie theater one time. Mother threw the picture away. I had it, but I had to throw the
I
picture
did
on.
not throw her picture away. I've seen her picture, but I don't know.
I don't know where it is because maybe I threw it away. I don't know, but I thought you did.
I have seen the picture, but I don't know what happened to it.
I don't either, but it was you didn't get off with just you out to go to a movie and back and be back because usually at night you get into air raids and stuff like that on that beach down there that they send over. Really it was going on into London, but every now and then somebody would drop a bomb down there close to you on that area where you were. But in trouble, I thought we had more people hurt from our own anti-aircraft guns than we did from the enemy because you could shoot that stuff up there and it'd come back down. And we were shooting at the plane.
So then when the invasion occurred, this was in June. What role did y'all play in that, or where did y'all?
We went into we loaded up and were supposed to go in on June the 5th, but the weather was so bad they wouldn't let anybody get off of the base
This
at all.
was across the English Channel to the coast of Normandy.
And they wouldn't let anybody off because it was already set. And I remember that they had religious services all up and down the pier. But people, wanted to go. Catholics would hold them for everybody, the Protestants for everybody, whether you was Catholic or Protestant. And of course, the pier was full of people because everybody was going to, whatever religious service it was closest to you. And then they sealed the place because you couldn't get off on the 5th. And they were afraid they were going to have to, just cancel it. And then they decided that we were going on the 6th. So we left about 2 a.m. We left really before then. We left before midnight. Started to cross, and the weather was terrible. But they thought it would clear up before, the time we got there. We started to cross, and the tide and the channel was so swift LCTs that would have just a couple of tanks on it, and they couldn't make but about 7 or 8 knots. And we would be past them, and they would be backing up, going toward back to England. I mean, the tide was so strong, they didn't have enough power, and hell, they were just standing there grinding away, and everybody else was passing them right on. And then eventually it changed enough where they could make it. They were making maybe 1 knot actually out of the 7 or 8 that they were. That was top speed they were doing, so it like never took them a good time to get there. But about 2 a.m. we got off the coast. We were there at Omaha Easy Red, which was the worst and toughest beach of the whole invasion. And we, all of us, met up with other LCIs, and we went around in circles out there, just circling one, just one right behind the other, waiting for our signal to go in. And you could sit back and just watch those battleships throwing at those great big 12-inch and 14-inch, 16-inch guns, and it looked like a 4th of July. Big old white streaks about that, well, it'd be longer than that, it looked like. It looked like it was about 7 or 8 feet, going over your head, going inland, hitting where the beach was and where there was gun emplacements were. But nobody knew it at the time, but on the beach we would have hit, there was a division of Germans down there on maneuvers. And they had wooden bullets. That's all because they weren't expecting to see them. See, they had sent, as we went in, before we went in, they sent a complete decoy of ships up the channel to make them think that we were going to hit way up the beach.
Who sent
The Americans
Allies
sent them up there, and they were not planning on making any invasion up there at all, but they were sending a whole bunch of ships up there and make them think if they did, they would be pulling their troops up in that area, and it just happened that they had this division waiting down there for us, which they didn't know we were coming, and we didn't know they were there. And so we started in and got in. They gave us a signal to go in, and I guess we got maybe a couple of 100 yards off of the beach, and then they waved us off because we hadn't taken the beach yet, because the first wave was those little bitty boats with army and tanks and all to go in, and most of the tanks, it was so rough, were sunk before they had those tanks that's supposed to float and go in, and about 80% of them were sunk before they even got to the beach. And we lost a lot of people, that's right there on that. So when that happened, it was still hot, and they were shooting those wooden bullets at everybody. And they wouldn't necessarily kill you unless they hit you in the right spot, but if they hit you, they could really make you miserable because they'd hit you in splinter.
Yeah.
And when they waved us back off, so then we went back out, started circling again. And we were to hit at H plus 30. That was 30 minutes after the invasion started. And we went in on time, but then we couldn't get in. It was too hot, so they sent us back. So that H plus 30 was equivalent to 6:30 in actual time. And then we went back, circled, and at 10 o'clock they sent us in. Well, we started in, and man, it just looked like a cakewalk, Everything was fine. Looked like it would have an area where it had those high hills and the bluffs and all that were there. And we started in, and we got about, I guess, 100 yards or so off, and we were just moving up and down trying to find the spot where we were supposed to hit. And I mean, all of a sudden, they started coming back at us like hitting those 88s down there at you right quick. So we turned and went right on into the beach. And at that point, then we got hit by an 88. But we lost our ship, the LCI 487 was hit and knocked some of the ramps off. But fortunately, though, we had got most of the troops off before that happened. I was not on the ship at the time it was hit. I was on the beach. I had taken we were hit and were dead in the water about maybe 50 yards away from the beach. And another fellow and myself went down those ramps and took a rope and swam into the beach. And they were sniping. Snipers were shooting at us all the time. It was up there. So we went in and held this rope and let the Army come in because it was over their heads.
So this rope led from the ship
To
the
the
shore.
shore, and I
then
was on
these-
one end and the ship was on the other end.
And so these infantrymen would come
Hold
down the
on
rope,
to it.
hold on to the rope.
Rope. And the tide was so fast going by
You had to hold on
you had to
the
hold on to the rope. And every now and then one of them would get hit, and they had what they called a little old CO2 belt that went right around the middle, and it had a 50-pound pack on the back. And if they got hit and turned that rope loose, they just go upside down. All you'd see is a pair of feet sticking up. So what you'd have to do is you'd swim out and try to get those guys and drag them in if you could get them before they drown. But so with all of that, when you went in, and when I got there, I mean, there were just bodies all over. They stacked up already like cord of wood, you know. And those 88s were coming down about every 100 yards. They were laying them down that beach, and I was sitting there, and you could look up there and see them coming down the beach. You was wondering whether it was going to hit right on you or where it was going to hit. Because the guy in the next ship over to our right, who was taking the line in, and the 88 hit him, right? I mean, direct hit on just on him, and you couldn't find a piece of him any bigger than a quarter, and he was splattered all over the side of that ship. And you just knew that, well, was that going to get me too, you know? And it was two of us out there. I wasn't supposed to have gone out there, but they didn't. But we only was going to use one line in case of an emergency. We weren't set up for two. So I told the skipper I was sitting on the back at the back on the stern, back there with the guns, and that was my deal to be there with the 20 millimeter. And I told the skipper I would take the other line out because I didn't want to give it. I just said I don't want to give another sailor that order to go out there. I'd go myself, you know. I just didn't want to do that. So he didn't want me doing it, but I went ahead anyway. Went on out there, and I thought I'd take safety up next to LCT. It was already up on the beach, and I got up next to it, not knowing what was on it. And if an 88 had hit it, they wouldn't have found me. I'd have been all the way back in London because it was loaded with dynamite and ammunition and everything else. And neither would our ship probably because it was right up there, almost in front of it. And but we picked up some of the Army guys, you know, and brought them in. And I can see those guys now. We had the captain, I guess, was the tallest guy I'd ever seen in my life in those days. He was about 6'7" or 6'8". And I can see him now hollering medic, you know, every time a guy, he was a tough guy. He'd come up all the way up from South Africa. But he was looking after those guys, you know, and yelling for the medics every time somebody hit. He would look like a Georgia pine sticking up out there. Everybody else was down when he was yelling for those medics. We later heard that he was killed in Holland over there when it went into Holland. Because they always wrote back to us, some of the Army people did. And during that period, when I got back on the ship, and there was, I guess, a whole bunch of Army guys that had been shot. I mean, you could just see where they were just peeled. Whole chest was peeled away, you know, where they'd been hit. And we didn't lose any sailors or anything on our LCI, but there were about 12 of the Army guys that were killed or died, were hit and died. But you'd be, you know, close as I am to you, and you'd see somebody get hit, you know, right there on the ship before I even got off of it, you know. But
now, were those Army guys who were taking over? Were those
we were
Navy
Army guys.
You were Army guys who were taking over. Y'all were Navy, but you were taking over the Army.
We were taking the Army into it. We were called in the amphibious forces, the landing craft. And we were taking them over. We were supposed to, after we let them off, we were supposed to go back to a transport and pick up more and bring them in. Well, we never did get back to the transport. We were hit, dead in the water, and they had to repair some of the engines before they could get it cranked up. So the skipper, after it settled down, the skipper had said to call me and said he wanted me to take half the crew and just get them back to England because he said, I don't know what's going to happen here. And he said, no point in everybody. We'll just keep those that are necessary to the operation of the ship see, I was just communications commissary officer, so I didn't have anything like the engineering or the exec, which would be in charge of, you know, the deck and all like that. I just had that. So he called me and said, take half of the crew and get them back to England any way you can. So I loaded them up and said, let's hit the water. So we all put on life jackets. All of them did. And we started swimming just as far out as we could go. And turned out one guy didn't have on a life jacket. And he was the only guy that couldn't swim, but he was leading the pack out there to get out of all of that. He was swimming, whether he knew how or not, but he was swimming till we got out of range of all that, and then he went down to the bottom. Somebody grabbed him and held on to him and had a life jacket, took off when he got him, put him on in that jacket. Then there was another LCI trying to come off the beach, and we swam into it back to the beach and tried to get on it, and they didn't want us on it. But we jumped on it anyway. And so when we got on it, then it hit a mine, and it just blew everything right up on that engine, part of that engine up on the deck where I was laying down up on the deck. All of us were laying down to keep away from that shrapnel. And they hit, I was there, I saw the colored boy, Stewart, go up to the top of the con, and I was right in the back. And a dud, 88, went through the con and cut his leg off just like a surgeon, just as smooth, just like a surgeon had cut it off. And here comes that leg rolling down that deck beside you there. And I thought I was hit because I kept feeling moisture, you know, back on my back. And my thing was just torn to shreds. My life jacket looked like somebody had just clipped it with razor blades. It's all over. So I reached back there and I looked up and I looked, and it was all white. It was white. And I said, oh, Lord, my bread corpuscles are gone. I ain't got anything left for white corpuscles. And as it turned out, I was sitting next to two big old rows of carnation milk. And the shrapnel had hit the carnation milk and busted it and threw it all over me back there. And I thought I was bleeding to death and all that stuff going down behind. And then when they got hit, then they were just really pouring us good down there, trying to hit us, and boy, it was, I didn't know whether we were going to get off of that or not. A destroyer, or a DE, was going back and forth out and across in front of the beach, and those gun emplacements wouldn't shoot when they were out there because they'd see where it was coming from. The Navy was doing a good job. They were putting those shells right in those little old holes about that big, and they saw what was taking place with us, and they stayed there and sent a boat in to get us all. And so all of us, we took the injured and everything else off of there and went to...
That ship sank, didn't it?
And that's the ship that did.
Oh, the one, that second LCI that you were on?
It didn't get back.
Yeah.
But then we went on to this DE, and so they... next morning, well, while we were in there, they had a plane come in trying to straight and bomb those ships out there that night. And I stayed in that, the officer took me back to his quarters, and he said, just stay in here, and you can stay out of the way. He said, you can just go on to bed, get in my bed if you want to, but he said, I'm going to be up all night. So I did, and that ship would lean over, you could tell that they were general quarters, and they were trying to evade some bombs or some guns that were shooting out there. I said, if they hit this rascal, I'm staying right here. I ain't moving out. I didn't know how to get out of there anyway. And so next morning, they called me and said, your ship is back floating out there. So we're going to send you back to your LCI, and you take the crew. You're in charge of the crew and officers of the other ship, the other LCI. You take all of them back. And when we did, there was an Army officer that I guess I must have been one I might have helped or so. But I later found out that he put me in for the Navy Cross, and you know, for what I did, you know,
with
that line.
the rope.
Yeah.
Right. That.
And later on, it came in that that's when they gave me the Silver Star. which later on got me out of service because they give you an automatic discharge if you had one of the top 4 medals. And Silver Star really was the 4th one. And so that gave me an automatic discharge, but I wasn't married and didn't have enough points to get out. But then when we went back to England after we got floating, we were in bad shape and had to get repaired and try to find out what else we had to do. We went back and was sunk and wasn't a shot fired. They took us back. They took us back into Plymouth, and since we were the only little ships that could land, could be touching the ground. They would send us all the way back as far as we would go. Could go in one of those sort of like I guess a cove, and then the bigger ships that were shallow, because when the tide went out, we'd be sitting on the ground, which didn't hurt, but the other ships it would. So what happened, we went back there, and they had a crevice where we were like that. When the water went down, we were like that. So they had what they call a sea chest in the engine room. And it's about the size of a chest, sticks up about like this table. And then you can open a top in it and look down and see the water. And the water will not run in there, you see. Well, the people in the engine room would look, open that, leave it open to see when the water, because you have to cut your generators down because you didn't have any water to operate the generator. So somebody forgot to close the sea chest and thought we was on level land. As it turned out, we was on a crevice, and the ship was about like this in the angle. So when the tide came in, it came in that sea chest. The water did, by being at that angle. And we only had a 1/4 inch skin on that ship anyway, to separate the cruise quarters and all. So the next morning meant that somebody didn't check.
Was telling us the story of the open sea chest and how they sunk without getting a shot.
It wasn't a shot fired, and we got up the next morning, and when the gangway watch went down to the engine room to check it, first step he was in ankle deep water. And then right then and there was when everything broke loose. And the bad part was, between that and the cruise quarter, that skin of the ship was only about a 1/4 inch thick, and if it had given away, they'd have drowned everybody in that all the crew. So right quick they got everybody up out of there, and then put in handy billies and drew out all the water. And then they floated us down and had to bait the engines and clean them out, and then the skipper and the engineer and the officer got a reprimand. And so that was where we were sunk, and now the shot was there fired. And then we went back and forth. Then after we got it repaired, we went back and forth carrying more troops. And we did carry 180 nurses.
Oh, the truth comes out here.
And so there was a whole bunch of nurses on that ship. And we had to stand watch with the crew and those nurses being on board there.
Making sure that
everything was okay.
Right.
And we got them over there, and then we would come back.
You're not sure everything was okay?
Well, we're not sure, but from what this group that was in Atlanta, I don't know what they. I didn't know it, but they told me they had a still on that ship, and I didn't know it, couldn't find it. They said they had a still and made a little booze on there, and I said I didn't know it. And but one of the funniest things, when we went across, the 6 hours when we left New York going across, we stopped in the Azores, and they told us not to let the crew get close to the rum runners, because they had bad rum and all, and somebody could get killed or get real sick. And so we tried to watch that, but they must have got to them, because one night, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, I was rooming with the skipper, and we heard the engines crank up, woke us up. And, they have those things, those bells ring, and all.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, that ship felt like it was full speed ahead, hit those bells, and you could tell when it was, And that ship was straining. And what had happened, one of the engineers thought it was time to get going, and he had got in that rum, and he went down there while we were tied up to the pier and hit that thing full speed But that was one of the other funny things that happened on that. But then we sold the ship to the British, and I came back on a transport and was sent to Pearl Harbor, waiting for another assignment. I had 30-day leave in Columbia, where I had the privilege of playing bridge one night with your mother, and decided that maybe things ought to get more interesting than just playing bridge.
Oh, okay.